everybody. It is Curry Morris, live for the first time doing a movie review this way. Hope if anyone's watching that you can hear me okay. Let me know in the comments if you can't. Tonight, I'm just going to jump right into it. We are discussing Captain America Brave New World, the fourth Captain America movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I'll go ahead and ask in advance if you can excuse me. I'm getting over COVID and maybe coming down with something else. I don't know. My throat's a little ticklish tonight. I have a little bit of a cough. So forgive me in advance. I'll just mute when I have to cough like right now. So yeah, I wanted to kind of start this with, I know this is a bit out of the wheelhouse of my normal reviews, where, I write it, I edit it, I post it. It's a normal video. I am a dad of three, full-time job, part-time job, trying to do the YouTube critic thing. It just takes a lot of time, and it was kind of burning me out. So I thought I'd give live streams a try, since I can just kind of share my thoughts, and it shows up as a VOD later, and people can watch it. So we are going to talk about the movie and kind of interact with the comments if we have any. And then we will kind of maybe talk about what I've been watching a little bit just for fun. And if you've been watching anything, you can chime in the comments. So yeah, I'm going to give it just a moment for me to see if anybody else wants to join. And then we will jump right into this thing. And yeah, I'm just going to look over my notes here and we'll get started. So we'll be right back. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So, Captain America Brave New World, I kind of feel like to talk about it, we have to talk about the MCU as a whole first. I do want to make a shout out to our first comment. I believe this is Gabriel Green, my boy here. It's nice to see you, man. Thanks for joining. The MCU has been in a bit of a downward trend lately to the public perception for a lot of people. I think since post-Endgame with COVID, obviously there's been surefire hits with like No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine, at least at the box office. I've personally liked the majority of what's come out, with the exception, I think the only one I like actively dislike to hate is Thor Love and Thunder. Even Quantumania I thought was overhated. I didn't think it was great, but I thought it was overhated. So I think there's a lot more doubt and uncertainty with the MCU every time a project is released, whether that's due to how they started just over relying on quantity instead of quality. All the shows that came out, it's so much to keep up with nowadays. You look at the green screen, the CGI, the quality of the humor. Most of the time it's just very hit or miss now. They've experimented a lot, though, and I defend them for that. So I think a lot of people just assume trash going into Marvel, and there's a lot of people that just don't care anymore. And I completely get it. I think that's very understandable in a lot of ways. And I think when this one was announced, I was excited. And hey, my heat just cut on, so if you guys hear something weird, let me know. When this one was announced, I kind of feel like there was a whole Falcon and the Winter Soldier wasn't as well received by a lot of people I know that I hoped. I personally loved it. It's my favorite of the Disney Plus shows, other than maybe Loki. But I still think Falcon and the Winter Soldier is probably my favorite. It felt the most like a movie to me, in like the grounded Russo brothers or starting Russo brothers nature of like Winter Soldier and Civil War. And this very much is a sequel to that. I wasn't sure how much they'd rely on the knowing Falcon and Winter Soldier before this. And they don't a ton. You can watch it without, but it really helps if you do. They kind of assume you have if you're watching it. What intrigued me the most about this movie is I am a diehard Incredible Hulk fan. And I'm referring, of course, to the character, but also the movie from 2008 starring Edward Norton. That's one of my favorite MCU movies. and I adore it. And I was always sad it never got a sequel because of Universal Pictures and them owning the distribution rights. So when they announced that, General Ross would be back, and Harrison Ford was announced as cast, like, that's just perfect casting. Like, let's be honest, that is perfect casting. And then they announced that Samuel Stearns would finally come back as the leader, which is a Hulk villain, and it was set up all the way back in that 2008 film. Like, it's been 17 years that I've been waiting for that payoff. So the first trailer came out, and I was really impressed. But then there was some, like, discussion online of how it was looking, and I think everybody got a little bit more nervous, myself included. But I was still willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. So it's funny. It's almost like it's trying to be a return to form, and having its like own like thriller, political thriller vibe, like Winter Soldier did, because it even opens with no like the dun 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 and all like the flashing Marvel stuff. It doesn't even open with that. It's just a quick logo with like the glitchy look that's probably overused nowadays, to be honest. And then we jump right in. And I will say from the get-go, I was actually pretty impressed with the action scenes. They're not on the level of previous productions. Like, it's hard to top how unexpectedly good Winter Soldiers and Civil Wars were. Now, sometimes there's a lot of CGI affair. Excuse me. And less practical, like, martial arts choreography. And I think, depending on the filmmaker and the editing style, I really feel honestly, the editing style and the camera like language used really makes or breaks it for me. I am a fan of using a lot of wide shots to let the choreography breathe and do minimal cutting, not no cutting, but minimal cutting to like make it flow really well and just let us see the fight. The Captain America movies were great for that. And I had a comment that said Gabe said he kept up for so long, and he said it was Black Panther 2 and Echo that finally broke me. I haven't seen Echo. I really liked Black Panther 2 personally. I know opinions were split on it, but again, maybe I'm a shill. And then he said, I want them to get good again theoretically, but my ability to hope has been broken by so many mid-projects. And I think that's understandable. I don't feel as strongly that way on the movie side of things, but for the shows, I definitely get it because there's a bunch of shows I haven't seen. But back to the movie, getting back to those Winter Soldier vibes has kind of been a long time coming, and the film is clearly trying. There's a lot of dynamic fight scenes where I expected, based on the one clip that was released, I didn't watch the whole thing, but eventually I did see like part of it. I was like refusing to watch it for a while, where it's like the camera placement's awkward and it wasn't going to be super dynamic, but then we get these like top angle down shots like from the sky in the first action scene, and really like bone crunchy sound effects, really great choreography, and stunt doubles that I didn't even notice, which I'm really picky about. Good blend of CGI in there, like to do the crazy Falcon stuff. Like it seemed pretty seamless for the most part. So I was excited, and it built up hope. Instead of just your standard shot like on a tripod sitting there, or like a bunch of cutting back and forth with shaky cam, like they've got a camera on like a circular dolly going around. They move the camera around people. There's a lot of like circular shots in the movie, and I just thought that was really, really cool and really fun. But also, like, while being a return to form, the movie is also trying to be the movie that addresses criticism by moving the universe forward. I can't tell you how many times online I've seen people talk about how in Eternals, this giant celestial came out of the sea and the movie just never addressed it. Well, this movie goes out of its way to make that a major plot point. And we're not going to be talking about spoilers tonight, but I will be talking about whatever was in the marketing. And what we know was in the marketing was that the celestial has given birth to adamantium, essentially. It's become a giant resource of adamantium. And it's the first time they're discovering it in this universe, which is pretty cool. And it's brought up. It is a plot point. And I see that they're trying, but they don't really do anything with it. So before we kind of jump into the cons, I do want to keep going over what I like about it. I do like that it tries to further the world. It addresses things that long needed to be addressed, such as the plot points from Incredible Hulk, the Eternals, and all those things. The action is good and dynamic and fun. Never to the level of those other movies, but it is like a return to form where I don't want to just watch CGI slugfest. I want to see real people with like learned choreography do things. And it's pretty cool. Do they stretch the whole women from the Red Room being able to take down a like room full of men when like a woman who's like under 5 feet tall, it looks like, is doing it and maybe only weighs 100 pounds? Like, no shame or anything like that. It just stretches believability a little bit. And my brother Jordan said they addressed several existing hanging plot points from the MCU, which I enjoyed. And that's kind of what I'm touching on now, is I appreciate that they do that. I do think maybe they could have done more with it. But again, I'm trying to break this up a little bit. So in the general tone of the movie, I think is pretty appreciated. That it's the political thriller vibes, taking itself seriously without everything being a joke. But I will say, maybe I just need to mix these together because it's kind of hard to talk about one without talking about the other. Because there's this is really cool, but in a lot of parts of this movie, the tone and atmosphere, especially in the first act, is like really good for the most part. But the MCU formula is quippy, joke. And in some movies with great writers, it works really well. And in others, it just doesn't. And the humor here, 95% of the time, just doesn't land. It is either just not funny, and a couple of times it's just really cringe. Like, oh, y'all are trying way too hard. Please stop. Are there a couple that make me chuckle? Sure. There's going to be. I mean, when you have 100 jokes in a movie, if 2 or 3 of them land, I mean, it's just, that's the odds. But if 97 of them don't, it's like, So whenever it does that, it feels like it was trying to be a different movie that they just didn't feel as effortless at being able to do. I should have brushed up on who the writers were in this one, but wasn't able to do so before we started. Had some technical difficulties. One of the big sticking points of this one, I think from the get-go that we have to address, is Anthony Mackie as Captain America. Look, I'm a comic fan too. Falcon becomes Captain America in the comics. There's precedent, and that's all she wrote. And Falcon and Winter Soldier, I thought, did a really good job dealing with that transition. So when we got to the movie, we were ready to go. The movie still deals with it and has some nice surprises with that, and that's kind of where the emotional core of it comes from. It might be a little rehashed of Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I think they kind of did that because it's still an issue. It's not something that just goes away, because they address one of the biggest things people have with who one of the big bads is in this movie. I don't want to spoil anything. But the emotional core of why Anthony Mackie's Cap is the way he is, Sam Wilson, it works, but sometimes it feels like we don't really understand how the world sees him because we never really saw it. Like there's some missing time there. But it is earnest in how it approaches it. It just maybe feels a little bit forced, and not more like they're telling us rather than showing us, if that makes sense. But I still like it. I still like the attempt and like them positioning Captain America as a mantle that means something, that it has weight, it has a responsibility in what it carries. And I just really appreciate that. Like the really like heavy moral, like Superman, Spider-Man, they always do that. With great power comes great responsibility. Moral angle really well. And with that, the performances are pretty good in those moments when they're not trying to be quippy. But the film can't quite always decide, does it want to be the quippy humor? Does it want to be political thriller? Does it want to be a blockbuster? And so I think that's probably the biggest problem I have with it. The other elephant in the room is Harrison Ford. I just got to say for now, before I jump back into the comments, Harrison Ford tax. If you know, you know. So let's look at some more comments. So our boys from Banter Fodder, I'm not sure if this is Michael or my friend Drew or my friend Michael. You're my friend too. He said, even though my expectations are tempered, I'm still looking forward to watching Brave New World. At the very least, I know Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford are going to crush it. Yeah, and you would be right. Gabe said the Rotten Tomatoes score is worrisome, but I've seen enough. It's pretty good from people I trust to still go see it. Yeah, and I've gotten to a point with Rotten Tomatoes. Obviously, I know you know how it works, where after it came out that the publications were being paid to write certain reviews and skew Rotten Tomatoes and how make or break it is to the industry, I get a little let's not worry about it. I predicted it'd be 50 to 60%, and last I looked today, it was 53%. I don't know what it's at right now. If one of y'all want to tell me in the comments. Okay, hey Drew, let's see that it's you now. He says this is Drew. But that's still half the people giving it a good review, and I've always lost a little bit of faith in Rotten Tomatoes ever since Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. I'm just jaded still from that. But no, I think that is a reasonable thing to look at and go, ooh, I don't know. Drew also said, yeah, that's how I'm feeling about it. I'll go in as open-minded as I can be. Fingers crossed I like it. If not, I've got Superman and Fantastic Four to look forward to. Yeah, and I definitely think for you guys that are a little more jaded on the MCU right now, I don't know if this will change your mind, but I do think it's a step in the right direction, if that makes sense. It's not the absolute walking parody that Thor Love and Thunder is. It's not the volume disaster fest of backgrounds that Quantumania is. Even I can admit that part. This is probably a good segue to talk about the reshoots. Because the reshoots, I think, really blend together fine. If I hadn't known about them and known Giancarlo Esposito was added in reshoots, I wouldn't have ever been able to tell. Except for in the third act, there's some very obvious green screen insert shots. I'm that character is not in that scene. He is not physically there. He is rotoscoped in or whatnot. Or that is not that was not a real background. And they don't look good. It became apparent they reworked the ending in third act a good bit. And also, there's a big standoff in the second act that almost felt like a third act showdown. I'm is this movie about to end? No, there's a whole nother act. And I think the marketing might have something to do with some of how they structured that. Because my brother Jordan said it perfectly. He said Harrison Ford is the best part of the movie, and I completely agree. And now Harrison Ford is probably my favorite living actor, or at least one of the top 5. He's just phenomenal. I liked William Hurt as General Ross. I liked Sam Elliott as General Ross, but Harrison Ford brings a gravity and a vulnerability to him that I don't know if we'd seen before, other than him being kind of a despicable person that says he loves his daughter but kind of goes against it. He is in much more of this movie than I expected. He has a ton of screen time. There were moments I'm is Harrison Ford actually the lead of this movie? Because it feels like it. And Jordan said Rotten Tomatoes are currently at 52%. So yeah, I think it'll land somewhere between 50 and 60. I could be wrong. It could drop. But Love and Thunder is also at 63%. So, yeah. Means nothing. But I know it got leaked a long time ago in one of the toy lines that Red Hulk would be in the movies. I think that's why they kind of just went with marketing Red Hulk in the trailers. But I wish they wouldn't have, because it would have been a really good surprise. Even if us comic fans had been able to see it coming a mile away, because you know it's coming, it robs some of the weight when it does, and it's executed really well. And I will say, Red Hulk, the CGI and the motion capture, how they make him look like Harrison Ford, it looks phenomenal. His CGI looks so clean. It reminds me of early Hulk in the Avengers, and probably Age of Ultron as well, when he was just the rage monster, just how much of a step up it was in the realism aspect of the texture of the skin, the way he's lit, how he interacts with the environment, the destruction he causes. It all looks great. And I was actually kind of surprised at how well the CGI was done in this. Like, that's one of the biggest criticisms I think Marvel has gotten lately. There's a couple like times where guys get like brushed aside and like go flying in different parts of the movie from an explosion or whatever, and like you can tell like that's not a real body flying away, but you know, whatever. I took issues with the green screen or volume, whatever they used. I'm pretty sure it was green screen in several instances, but the actual like physical CGI of buildings, destruction, characters was really cool. Samuel Stearns, I don't want to say too much about. I love that he's here. I love the vibes around him. I wanted more from a lot of aspects, and I wanted more from how he looked. I do appreciate what they went for. I think he will let some people down, and I hope they bring him back for something else. I think he was underutilized. But I do appreciate how they addressed the canon of the MCU with him and everything involved with that, because that's been a plot thread that's been hanging for so long. And my brother Jordan caught a kind of a good consistency. They make a mention of how long it's been like in real time since Incredible Hulk, and he was like, wait, what about the 5 years between Endgame and Infinity War? And it's like, oh, well, maybe the blip was being considered and how many years it's been to them. You'll see when you watch it. Excuse me. Yeah, Jordan backed me up, said Harrison Ford is definitely the co-lead of this movie, and I agree. And Gabe said, does the Red Hulk growl, get off my lawn during the showdown, not watching otherwise? No, he doesn't. But headcanon, this is a sequel to Air Force One, for sure. Not really, but can be if you want to be. Drew said, the MCU as we know and love it belongs in a museum. It's time to reboot it fully. While I understand where you're coming from, I disagree. I think starting over would annoy way more people. Because if they started over now, I feel like we'd retread so much ground that we've seen so many times. I just don't really want that. And with Secret Wars, kind of assuming it's going to be a soft reboot, we'll see how bold they are with that. I'm not ready. But it does kind of suck to think like we'll never see like a Steve Rogers Captain America and Wolverine World War II movie. We'll never see like Iron Man come back and like, you know, meet up with Magneto and Xavier unless they reboot. So I think there is some merit to it. But when you're like 40 movies deep, I feel like you're so deep in rebooting it would be like sabotaging yourself. But that's me. Jordan said he agrees too much of the movie was given away in the trailers and other marketing. Yeah, and I agree with that. He also said sequel to Air Force One and add Gary Oldman and you've got it. Gary Oldman in the MCU would be incredible. Who could he play though? I feel like he would need to be a villain, and I'm not really sure who I would pick because he's just got such good screen presence. So I'll ponder that one. Another good thing, just kind of like side note, the musical score I actually thought was pretty good. Especially during the like celestial and the water sequence. Really good stuff. I do want to address something that I've kind of danced around because I have mixed feelings on it. And that is the fact that it is 100% a sequel to The Incredible Hulk. It picks up all of that movie's plot points, the emotional arcs of the characters, except for Bruce Banner, but he's mentioned a lot, and I love that. But it is a Hulk sequel without the Hulk, and that's a problem. I'm not saying that these stories can't work without the Hulk, because it does. Like it's a pretty good movie. But when you have all these Hulk characters, you're dealing with Hulk lore. You're dealing with Hulk, like one of his main villains, arguably his arch enemy, other than Abomination, the leader, which they don't ever call him the leader, I don't think. If I missed that in the movie, let me know. it feels strange that like he can show up and they can kind of remix Planet Hulk and Thor Ragnarok. He can show up kind of and be a joke in She-Hulk. But they couldn't even get him on the phone to talk about Ross as president. They couldn't get him on the phone to talk about Red Hulk. You know, there's no cameo, and this was reported before the movie. There's no cameo. He's talked about a lot. His blood's talked about. That's what created Samuel Stearns. It's very weird to me that he's absent. And I think there's an argument to be made to, like, maybe Hulk would have distracted from the political thriller aspect. It could have just been Mark Ruffalo. Like, it would have been fine. I'm not saying he had to Hulk out. But him having no presence in the story at all, even as, like, consulting with Ross with what they deal with, is really unsatisfying to me. And kind of a missed opportunity. I have seen fanboys online say that they should have done it like a buddy movie between like New Captain America and Hulk. And I would have been fine with that. It probably takes away the urgency of the ending, because when Red Hulk shows up, you know, a lot of people are like, how the heck would he be able to fight him? They do address that, and it is scary because you know he's just a normal guy. You know, he's not a super soldier, and it deals with it pretty effectively. Had Hulk been around, you probably don't get that. But doing Red Hulk without Hulk is a little bit weird, but it goes beyond that. And I know it's partially because they just don't have the rights to Hulk, the film, like distribution rights. And that's sad to me. Hulk is he's honestly my second favorite Marvel character. Has some of the best lore, has some great villains, and he's just really underrepresented. And I have not been happy with how Hulk has been handled, really since Infinity War. He's fine up until the beginning of Infinity War, and then I'm kind of like, I don't love how he was handled after that. Not saying it's bad, just don't love it. Other than the snap that he does. So, being a Hulk sequel without being a Hulk sequel, your Captain America sequel, just leaves me scratching my head. Like, were they searching for more stories? Was it a way to try to tie everything together? I don't know. And even like the post-credit scene isn't really that exciting. It just teases what we kind of already know. And it was clearly filmed later after the fact. I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts about the Hulk sequel without the Hulk, just based on what you've seen from the marketing? Gabe, I think if you're still here, I know you really like Incredible Hulk 2. Maybe not as much as me, but all right, let's catch up on some comments. Let's see. Jordan said Gary Oldman is Mr. Sinister. You know, I could see it. I still kind of see John Hamm, because I feel like he was rumored to be cast a long time ago, and that would have been great. Gabe, The Incredible Hulk is the most underrated MCU film, so this is music to my ears. My brother in Christ. I am so happy you said that, because I completely agree. Easily the most underrated MCU film. It's actually still in my top 10 MCU films, I believe. I unapologetically love it. It is everything I've ever wanted from a Hulk movie, and I don't know if it will ever be done again. They never call him the leader in the movie. Yeah, that was unfortunate. If anybody doesn't know, Jordan went with me to my press screening because he's my brother, and family tax. Gabe said Marvel should get Louis. I'm gonna mispronounce his name. I think it's Leterrier back and let him shoot in real locations. You know what? I agree. He is actually a really underrated action director, in my opinion. I mean, if you look at his filmography, he was like the second. He co-directed the first Transporter with Corey Yuen, or Corey Yuen, however you pronounce it. I think he was considered like artistic director, but he directed 2 and 3. He did Now You See Me, the first one, which had no reason to be as good as it was to me. Incredible Hulk, Clash of the Titans. He did Fast and Furious 10 or X, whatever, which was a return to the form for the franchise, in my opinion, mostly. I don't want to start a conversation on that yet. But I agree. He is super underrated. Michael's here. Michael said, what up? Gabe said Professor Hulk having to find his inner rage again when facing a true savage, but Hulk could be fun. Yeah, and I just hope we get more Hulk stuff in the future. Because they went out of their way to bring Emil Blonsky Abomination back in She-Hulk. And I don't love at all what they did with him. I feel like they made him a joke. But he also showed up in Shang-Chi. So I'm hoping there's going to be more. He said, I bet I'd like it more than you. I'm not sure what you're referring to there. I don't know if you mean Incredible Hulk or not. I have it rated pretty highly. I really love it. So that kind of leads me to say, like, when it's all wrapped up in a neat little bow at the end, it's a pretty safe movie. And I know I'm not the first one to say that, if you guys have been paying attention to the discourse. They don't really take major creative risks. Oh, you said Incredible Hulk. Yeah, no, I like it more, trust me. I think I have it at 4.5 stars on Letterboxd. I doubt you have it that high. If you do, great. We can love it together, but I really love it. The movie is just super safe. I think they wanted something that was like a surefire, checks all the boxes. It's kind of a return to the grounded sense, which honestly, when it comes to MCU, minus the Avengers movies, the grounded ones do tend to be pretty darn good. Excuse me. You know, they do the new Falcon. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name. I think it's Joaquin Torres. Is that the actor? I need to look that up. He gets a lot more screen time. I kind of feel like his arc. He was at Presence. Yeah, Joaquin Torres. Danny Ramirez plays him. Excuse me, guys. I'm battling my throat. He gets a lot more screen time, and they try to make him the. Sorry, I got distracted by the comments. The comic relief here, and it doesn't work. I'm not saying it's the guy's fault. I think it's how he was directed, and it's the script. He's extremely likable, but he comes off as a very bland character to me, and then the emotional thing they go with at the end just doesn't really work. But there's potential. Also, his Falcon suit just looks like the Wasp suit. I didn't really like the design of that. I do like Cap's new suits. I thought they looked really cool. How they used the wings and everything. It was pretty legit. Not gonna lie. Some of the stuff Sam Wilson does, you're like, he doesn't have the serum. How does he do that? But I'm willing to let bygones be bygones there. You said it's 4.5 of my heart. Well, make it official and put it on Letterboxd then. I actually had it at 5 stars at one point, and then I felt like I was being a little crazy, so I bumped it back down. It's one of those, like, I don't really have any issues with it, so should it be 5 stars? And then I'm like, I don't know if that's how 5 stars should work, but we'll see when I rewatch it again, because it made me want to rewatch it again. I do hope if anything happens, and Jordan says he likes Incredible Hulk more than me, if anything happens, I hope this makes people revisit that and reevaluate it, because there are people who just forget about it. There's also people who just like rage against it, saying how bad it is. Like, a lot of people put it at the bottom, and I'm like, you're crazy. Respectfully, lovingly, you're crazy if you think that. The plot itself is actually pretty scary, like from the political thriller angle. But they could have done more with it. Again, it's wrapped up very quickly, and it becomes very predictable by the end. So you have this like mix of great ideas, executed pretty well, except for the humor and a couple moments of green screen, that they just don't fully take all the way that they should have. And there are things that pull it back from being truly great, which is why I think it's good and solely good. I want to love it, and I do think maybe over time it could get better on rewatches, because it does finally feel like it sets up some, maybe urgency isn't the right word, but it sets up some plot points moving forward that more movies can build off of. I'm getting tired, y'all. Like, I feel like this sets up Thunderbolts indirectly, not like intentionally, but indirectly sets up Thunderbolts. Like, oh, that makes sense as the next step. And like, having seen the latest trailer, that makes sense as the next movie that's coming out. And I'll be interested to see how they tie it together. When I'm thinking about the idea that Avengers Doomsday is like a year away, and we have Thunderbolts movie-wise. I'm not counting shows right now. We have Fantastic Four. And then we have Avengers Doomsday. Is there something else in between? Movie-wise, I know Blade was supposed to realize... Blade. Gabe, you're not Blade. Love and Thunder made a lot of people rediscover how great Thor 2011 is. Yes, it did. And Thor 2011 is the best Thor movie, too. So it also made people realize that Ragnarok is a little bit overrated. Taika Waititi needs to be restrained and not be a sole writer. So yeah, all in all, kind of how I feel is whelmed. I thought it was really solid, really entertaining. Harrison Ford's performance isn't just because he's so likable, but he and Anthony Mackie play their roles with just full of conviction, with way more of an emotional core to them, to specifically, especially Harrison Ford as General Ross, who typically like is one-dimensional in every Hulk movie I've ever seen, really. Excuse me. And the reshoots and green screen and humor like do add some issues, but the reshoots from a plot perspective, and Anthony Mackie's gone on record saying they didn't really change the story too much. I think I read it was like 22 days, and all Marvel movies have reshoots. But the movie still works. Like, it flows logically. There's no major gaps. The CGI, and visuals look good. It looks like a movie to me. It's not too plasticky looking. The fight scenes I thought were decent. Not overly edited. Some are claiming that they're edited. There was like 1,000 cuts, and I just did not see that at all. It is very safe, but it does a lot to vindicate the Incredible Hulk fans while also wanting more, and it could cause that reevaluation. So I like it. So kind of where I'm landing personally is that I would give this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like a solid 7 out of 10. I really wanted to give it 4 stars, but 4 stars in my head is kind of where you reach truly great and beyond territory. And I think it's a little bit too flawed to get there. But I'm not going to balk at a really solid, like, well-made action superhero movie that does cool lore things with stuff that I've been looking forward to the whole time the MCU has been around. I remember when they first introduced Ross, Red Hulk hadn't been around that long in the comics. At the point, I'm like, man, I hope they do that one day. And here I am, 31 years old, and they finally did it. So that's where I'm at on the movie. I do tend to be forgiving as like a CBM fan to be more forgiving to these movies than a lot of people because movies are hard to make. I'm a fan of the genre. And when people call things like this trash, I'm like, you don't watch enough movies. Like, there's a lot of worse movies out there, And my motto is to always look for the good. Even when you watch a bad movie, I think movies deserve the benefit of the doubt enough to recognize what they tried to do. There are ones that make it really difficult. Even I have that problem, but I think there's a lot of good to be pulled from this one. Even if it's a little bit too safe in a lot of areas, and they could have done more with a lot. It's under 2 hours, so if they'd done this as like a 2.5 hour thing, like they did with the other Kappa movies, I think it would have had a lot more breathing room to expand on a lot of its ideas and plot points. But they just don't. It does feel like, hey, here's a really good like solid Cap movie that introduces some elements going forward, so that we are building to something. And that's fine. That sounds like that's what people want because they've been complaining about a lack of direction. But then they also complain that movies can't just stand on their own. So what do you want? Do you want a shared universe or do you want standalone films? This tried to be a bit of both, and I think sometimes it falters for it, but I do appreciate the effort. He says, how does it stand alongside recent ones? Gabe said, how does it stand along recent ones like Shang-Chi, Black Widow, Far From Home? I think you mean No Way Home, and Multiverse of Madness. For me personally, I would say it's on par to better than Black Widow. It's around there. Black Widow I enjoyed, but it felt like it just came way too late. And I had some other issues with it, but I liked it. I think I also gave it 3.5 stars. Multiverse of Madness, I was disappointed in the multiverse aspect because it should not have been titled that. It should have been titled Doctor Strange 2, or it should have been titled Wanda Strange, since it's basically a WandaVision sequel. Excuse me. Dying over here. I loved Shang-Chi. Loved it. In the same way that this ties back so well to Incredible Hulk that did that for Iron Man 3. And I love the Mandarin in that. And Multiverse of Madness, I feel like, is just partially, I like it so much because of Sam Raimi and how he directed it. It's got some issues too, I think, in how it was marketed. But if you're able to divorce yourself from that, I feel like it's such a creatively wild, goofy movie. WandaVerse of Madness, yeah, that would have been good. And as far as No Way Home goes, that's one of my favorite MCU movies. I think COVID... Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I'm probably getting sick again. I've been around a lot of people the last couple of days. My beard just hit the mic. I need to get a windscreen for this. Probably need to clean it after hacking all night. I love No Way Home. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. Seeing all those people together, the multiverse story being used well, the emotional core. There are elements of it I do think that could have probably been better, but that's a 5-star for me, and it's very special to me. So in the likes of those, though, just pull your comment back up. I would personally probably rank it No Way Home, Shang-Chi, Multiverse of Madness, Cap 4, Black Widow, if that makes sense. So that's where I'm at. At this time, I kind of want to do, if you guys have any more questions about the movie, I'm not going to go into spoilers. I feel like I've danced around some of them a little bit too much already. What do you guys have any questions about the movie that are watching? What can I ask? You know, some people are like, hey, should I even bother? Or should I wait for streaming? I will always advocate for the theater. Always. And I will always advocate, even though I am a critic, to not just listen to critics, but make up your own mind. Because some of my favorite movies critics hate. So, if anyone has any questions, now's the time. Otherwise, I want to kind of introduce a new segment here at the end. I need to blow my nose for a second, so I will be right back. So y'all type your questions while I go blow my nose. This is a new feature to be able to play background music. This is kind of hype. So, if there's no more questions, 3.5 stars, 7 out of 10. I do watch and review a lot of things on Letterboxd that I don't have time to review in my life as it is right now. So I just kind of want to take some time to kind of talk about the kicks that I get on and what I've been watching. I slowed way down on movies in the new year. I did catch up on Cobra Kai, which ends tomorrow with its last batch of episodes, and that's been incredible. One of the best streaming shows of the last decade. And then I was reading an article about movies, or maybe it was about Dolph Lundgren. And I realized I'd still never seen Masters of the Universe, so I watched the movie that he was in. Really enjoyed it. Kind of got me on a He-Man kick, watching the 2002 He-Man show I grew up with. Started watching with my son, who really likes it. He actually asked to watch it the other day. And then, from that, I was like, you know what? I want to watch a bunch of Canon Films. Canon Films did Masters of the Universe. So I've been going through some Chuck Norris movies that are really fun. And Canon Films is known for like their B movies, right? And I wanted to watch their anthology, like Ninja Trilogy. And boy, was that something. They all star the actor Sho Kosugi. And I watched Enter the Ninja, and it was terrible. Like, truly awful. But Revenge of the Ninja, the next one, is held in pretty high regard. And let me just say, I really liked it. So I bought it. Kino Lorber put out a Blu-ray, and I had to get it. And the third one, it's like your standard, not standard, but one of the best ninja movies, of which there are not many of. It's cheesy, but it's got really good action, surprisingly good action, and it was just my kind of vibe. I'm a big action movie buff. And then they made a third one called Ninja 3, The Domination, and this is, if you take Revenge of the Ninja and what they built there, bring back Sho Kosugi in the side role, mix it with Flashdance and The Exorcist. I've never seen anything like it. It's absolutely crazy, absolutely wild. But it kind of works. Really, really cheesy. And then I was going to watch Sho Kosugi's, it's not with Canon, but one of his other ninja movies. It was the last one he did until he came back and did Ninja Assassin, which I also love. It's called Pray for Death. But there's like an unrated version that was like really hard to find for a long time. That's supposed to be the true vision of the film. And Kino released a Blu-ray. So I blind bought this one. It was on sale. And I plan to watch that pretty soon. Maybe even tonight, because my voice is killing me and I probably need to end this soon. So that's kind of like the kick I've been on. It's been fun. Just to jump back in the comics, Gabe said, gotta go, good review, man. Thanks for joining me, man. I really appreciate your participation. We have Jesse McGinnis said, what's up, buddy? What's the best movie you've seen this year so far? Good thing I log everything on Letterboxd because I don't remember what I've watched, and I can pull it up and tell you. So, also, shout out, follow me on Letterboxd. It's just Currinator1, I believe is what I am. Or maybe I'm just Curry Morris. If you search me, you'll find me in my name. I have watched, I've only watched 10 movies so far this year. Which is kind of sad because, but at the same time, I go through kicks where, like, with the way my life is, I have a 4-year-old and I have 11-month-old twins. I have to pick one thing and stick with it. So whether that's TV shows, movies, or video games, and I was on a video game kick for a while, which I'm kind of feeling again. Probably the best movie I've watched so far this year is the movie Signs from 2002 with Joaquin Phoenix, Mel Gibson. I'd never seen it. My buddy Andrew, we have a local film club we do every month, and that was one of the ones he chose. It was incredible. One of the best films about faith that I've ever seen. Also about alien invasion. And there's just so much in that movie. I legitimately appreciated the music. James Newton Howard, man. Signs is incredible. That's probably the best one I've seen so far. So, yeah, highly, highly recommend. But yeah, I also, I need to get back to, I was watching the Underworld movies in December. I watched the first 3, which I'd seen, and then didn't get around to watching 4 and 5. I had an itch to watch some of the DC animated films that went straight to DVD. I need to see Watchmen Chapter 2. I actually wrote a review for Chapter 1. I never got around to filming. So I actually plan, that might be my next one. I plan to do a live stream talking about the animated adaptations of Watchmen Chapters 1 and 2 together. And after that, who knows? I may want to binge something else. I also binge all the James Bond movies except for the Daniel Craig era. I'd love to talk about those sometime. Get back on. I'd love to review all the Godzilla movies, which we may have plans for at some point. But I think I'm kind of winding things down. My voice is about gone. I think I actually am getting sick. But Jesse, you said just watch Wolfman the other day. Actually pretty good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I did see it. I thought it was pretty mid personally. I wanted a lot more from it. I did do a review on that one, so you're welcome to check that out. Not saying that you shouldn't have enjoyed it. I'm glad you did, but I was disappointed personally. But thank you guys so much who chimed in and watched and commented and interacted with me. This is a different approach from what I'm used to. I'm also a little bit sick this time, so it just wasn't. I'm not my full self right now, stumbling on my words and coughing and things like that. But if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. We are going to try to be doing these live streams more often because it does save me so much time. Even though it's an hour, instead of taking 5 or 6 hours to make a video from start to finish, I can do this in an hour and then be done. It's, give Cap 4 a chance. I think it's good and it's worth seeing. If you want to wait for streaming, I understand. But I will never advocate for that. Support your local theaters if you can. Even when it's as terrible as our local theater, support it. But I got to see this in Raleigh, thankfully. Bigger city, press screening. So thank you so much for tuning in. Like this video. It's going to be promoted as a video afterwards. Remember to always look for good. And yeah, I guess I will, catch you guys next time. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.